bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
It is absolutely a football Friday here on Birds 365. That's because the Philadelphia Eagles are actually practicing today. Back-to-back practices. The season's got to be starting this weekend, right?
Back-to-back. Wow. Yeah.
Can't get here
tough,
soon enough.
man.
But, hey, I did watch football. Did you watch football last night, McMullen?
I watched about 10 minutes of the Jets dominating, and then they Jetsed it, lost in the end. I wouldn't get too upset about that. I got a kick out of when Cleveland sent out the players that weren't dressing. I got their email. It was like 37. And I assume the number was similar for the Jets. Oof.
Yeah, not a lot of starters involved. And that Rodgers guy who did a really poignant and I thought impressive interview during the game. If you watch for 10 minutes, I'm sure it wasn't the 10 minutes that they.
I did not see Aaron. I saw Rondé Barber's interview. I saw Joe Thomas, probably a little bit more than 10. I saw Rebus as well. So I saw three guys, Hall of Famers coming in, but I didn't see Rodgers.
They had him mic'd up in, I think it was like the second. I don't even remember what part of the game was, but it was weird in that. I take it you weren't watching when the lights went out.
No, I didn't know the lights.
You know there was a 20-minute delay because the lights in the stadium went out. It's an old
stadium. It's always something with that thing. You know, they refurbished it. You know, Tom Benson
apparently.
No, well, I'll tell you, Jody, it's a hell of a lot nicer than it used to be. It used to be a dump to the point. You remember the one year where they just didn't play the game. Because the teams, I forget the teams, you might remember, they were like, we're not playing on this garbage. You know how it is now. And then Tom Benson, to his credit, and that's why it's named after him, came in and refurbished the thing to the point where it's at least an NFL field from a playing standpoint structure. But yeah, it used to be much, much, much worse. I don't know if did they have bad weather out there?
Not that I know of. The lights just went out. They didn't. Maybe I flipped over.
They
and
didn't pay the bill.
I could have been a little late on the payment of the bill. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but the lights went out for a period of time, but came back on in time for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a quarterback that I talked up here on Birds 365, any of my other shows. Thought he would be a nice fit for the Philadelphia Eagles for the same reason Marcus Mariota is supposedly a good fit. Because he runs and he's got some Jalen-like traits.
A lot of people were looking at DTR around. Yeah, and they took the exact opposite with Tanner McKee.
Right. They took a statue in the and I like McKee too, but he's a different type of quarterback than Jalen was and Jalen is. And oh, by the way, Robinson went first. The Eagles were probably going to use the 6th-round pick, and Robinson went in the 5th before they came up in the 5th. Did they even have a 5th-round pick this year? I forget.
They might, and by the way, Jody, they might have taken him, if he were there, but he was gone. So, he was. I get it. He does look like a fit for this offense, and there's something to say for that, to be similar. But I'd rather have just the better quarterback, and you figure it out from there. You hope the backup doesn't have to play. I mean, that's the best case scenario. But I don't want to say.
You mean the backup like Jalen Hurts? Oh, sorry. Yeah, he became the starting quarterback. You can elevate yourself from backup to starter at some point.
Yeah, but well, we know Marcus isn't going to do that. I think, if people are still holding out hope for that, it depends where you are in your career. Yeah, as a younger player, obviously you can elevate. If you've been around, and as Marcus spoke yesterday, 9 years, 8 different offensive systems, maybe that's part of the problem. But, he's been around for a while now. I think we know he's not going to be a high-level starting quarterback. So it kind of depends where you are in your career.
Right.
And, yeah, he's a young kid. Maybe he can develop. Odds are against him, but, hey, good luck.
And some people thought the odds were against Jalen Hurts again, but he has become the quarterback he's become. Yesterday at practice, you got Sirianni before they got underway. And your buddy of mine, Eric Kratz, did ask him about, or at least wrote about the fact that someone, whether it was by design or by accident, just happened, Hassan Reddick has now become a question as to whether he's happy or not happy, or is reacting to
the situation.
The situation. There is no situation, according to Sirianni. Okay, if you say so, Coach. Ed was the first one that I saw, and I had not even thought along these lines, but the fact that Hassan hasn't fully practiced yet, that they have been protecting him because he's got a groin, which he described as a non-injury. It's just that he doesn't want to take the chance of re-aggravating it, so they're going very cautiously and slowly. Ed kind of tied that into a hold-in, that this was...
Yeah, that's my fault, by the way. Because I told Ed that. Yeah, I told Tone that on the night show, Football 20. I must have not said it on Birds. I don't know. I say it so many. I told Mike Gill. I said, so it's my fault. But I also said, look, and the best example was Daniil Hunter, who was holding in, so to speak. But he wasn't practicing at all. I mean, he wasn't practicing, period. Hassan's practicing. He's just limited. But all I was saying is, look, if you've been around the NFL more than 2 minutes, you realize that these things tend to manifest themselves and fester. And when you say somebody like Hassan Reddick coming off the season he had, in the career he's had, because remember, the first 3 years in Arizona, he's 28 years old. He wildly outperformed his contract. He wildly is underpaid compared to the other top edge rushers in this league. It's natural. It happens all the time. They say, hey, what about me? And that's all I said. And, the situation might be nothing. He's practicing. He's just doing some 7-on-7 stuff, some individual stuff. And again, the hold in, the most recent, and Hunter got $20 million, was he wasn't practicing at all, and he was completely healthy. So they're not equal. But if you don't at least say, Hassan's probably not happy with his contract. And oh, by the way, he then admitted it. And he said, you guys see what's going on.
Right.
Meaning, look at my contract. There's something there. But he's a professional guy. He works his what off. Nobody's saying he's not going to give 100%, but he would like something done, I'm sure.
Sure. Not going to say no if the Eagles were to come to him. And it kind of organically came up in his media session the other day. And it's grown some legs here. And it may become an issue at some point. Don't know if it is just yet. The one thing that has been reported that I think is just unfair to both Reddick and the Eagles is someone I read stated that he took a hometown discount to come back and play for the Eagles. I don't believe that for a millisecond.
No, that's not true.
It really, it just isn't. He got a 3-year, $45 million deal. The year before, when he hit the open market, had his best year. This has been Hassan Reddick's career, and it's just got on a steady increase and gotten better every single year. Last year's increase in production kind of went off the charts, but he had gotten better every single year. Arizona foolishly tried to use him as an outside linebacker and covering and pass coverage. And they finally, in the last year in Arizona, decide, why don't we just let him put his hand in the dirt and just rush off the edge? And he had his best year in Arizona. Then he's a free agent. And everybody could have signed him, including the Philadelphia Eagles. He signed a 1-year deal with his old college coach down in Carolina for $8.5, $9 million. Wasn't anywhere near $15 million per. And had another good year, even better year than the year before in Arizona. So he was building up to the contract. It wasn't like other teams were offering him that $20 million per, but he said, no, I got to go home to Philadelphia, back to my Camden roots. That's not the case. The Eagles' offer was probably right there, very close to, if not at the top of the market. So he came back for a hometown discount to take care of Philadelphia because that's what he wanted to. I don't know that to be the case at all. And if that's part of your logic as to why you got to rip up the contract he's on right now and give him more because he did you a solid ahead of time, I don't know that to be the case at all. I think the Eagles paid right at the top of the market.
That's not. Yeah, that's revisionist history. He got what he sort of deserved to get last year. Then he outperformed that contract.
Right.
And that's where he is. And that's, he's not the only. He's again, but those. I think the only part I disagree with what you just said, Jody, is you're discounting those first 3 years in Arizona. And Hassan also brought that up because the reason his Carolina deal was 1 year and for less than what he should have made for the player he was because he only did it for 1 year in Arizona and he was already labeled a bust, and he kind of turned that around and he still talks about it today. And people sort of labeled him. That's why he has the chip on his shoulder. So that really, really set him back. Then he had another good year in Carolina. Then I think he got market value. And you know how this league works. Other edge rushers are getting paid, and they go above and above and above and above. And all of a sudden, it's not only Hassan Reddick. I mentioned Hunter, Bosa, Crosby, all these guys are going way past, in some cases, $20 million. And he's sitting there at $15 million, coming off the year he had, 4th in defensive player of the year voting, 19.5 sacks. So yeah, it happens that quickly. Now he's underpaid. And he knows the Eagles know what type of player he is because they had a historic pass rush, and that's not embellishment. Historic, 4th team in NFL history to get 70 sacks. First team in NFL history to have 4 guys get 10 or more. Right. And he's the key to it all. He's the guy. He's the best on that historic pass rush. So, yeah, he's underpaid. And he's still got that chip on his shoulder from those first 3 years in Arizona. And that set him back. And that factors into this because he's not on his first contract. He is 28 years old. The Eagles just drafted Nolan Smith. He sees that as well. You got to seize the moment when it's the moment, Jody. That's kind of what I said to everybody, and where it's, so it's partially my fault. But you got to seize the moment in this league. And after 19.5 sacks, top 5 defensive player of the year, that's the moment. That's the moment, typically, for people around the league.
Understood. But I will debate with both you and Hassan Reddick if Reddick really meant this, and I think he's using it as self-motivation. 2020 hindsight. Sometimes you can learn from 2020 hindsight. Sometimes it's too easy, too simple. Why do you think his sacks went from 2.5, 4, and 1 to 12.5 in his
Because they
fourth year. His
changed his
Arizona
position.
sacks. Excuse me?
They changed his position.
Exactly. So why would you hold those first 3 years against him and say that, oh, he was a bust? He was a bust because the Arizona Cardinals were stupid and played him out of position.
Because that's how you know how this league works, Jody. He was the 13th pick in the draft. He was the 13th pick in the draft. He goes to Arizona and he craps the bed because, yes, they made – remember, I talked about this last night as well. Remember Micah Parsons. If the injuries don't happen, the Dallas Cowboys still might not know what they have in Micah Parsons. Guys make mistakes. We have people saying all the time, oh, move Nolan Smith, the off-ball linebacker. And he got a couple reps there yesterday because of all the injuries, and people are excited about it. Yeah, all right, get excited about it. That would be a freaking disaster if the Eagles did that, just like Arizona, just like Dallas. These guys don't get everything right, and the league as a whole says, oh, this guy was the 13th overall pick. He's a bad player. He doesn't deserve to be there. And all of a sudden, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's just the reality. That's what Hassan went through. Because if they just said, oh, let's throw out the first 3 years of his career and pretend that his fourth year in Arizona was his first year, then everybody's lining up and saying, hey, let's give this guy the moon. But that's not how it works. They're saying, hey, they turned down this 5th-year option. You know how that works in this league, Jody. The 13th overall pick, it becomes this narrative. It becomes this narrative, and Hassan lived through it, and that's why he's got the giant chip on his shoulder. Brandon Graham lived through. Brandon Graham's 35 years old, Jody. 35 years old, is one of this franchise's best players ever on defense, ever. He's got like 10 years of being top 10 in PFF as a two-way defensive end. Stops the run, rushes the pass. The narrative here for years was, oh, God, we could have had Earl Thomas. We could have had Jason Pierre-Paul. This guy stinks. And all of a sudden, he turns into this great player. Now everyone knows he's a really good player, but they still don't know how good. And he's 35. And you know why they still don't know how good? Because of those first couple years. And because
I'll just say the people who think along those lines don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I would agree
Maybe
with that.
It's a league-wide accepted thing, but I'd say shame on the league that you can't see. Now, Brandon and Hassan are a tough comparison because Brandon never changed positions. Brandon just got better. Brandon may have underachieved for whatever reason his first couple of years in life, but he just got better, basically playing the same position. Hassan, there's something obvious you can look at and go, oh, maybe they just screwed up by playing him at a bad position for the first 3 years. And kudos to the Carolina Panthers. And yeah, I'll try not to hurt myself. I'll pat myself on the back. Kudos to Jody McDonald, because I said that the Eagles should have signed him the year that he played for Carolina. I projected. Look at what they did. First time they play him at the position he should be played, he got 12.5 sacks. Why wouldn't you go out and get him? And the only offer that he had that he felt comfortable with was Carolina, so he took it. But I thought the Eagles should have had him a year ahead of time, but at least they rightfully signed him to a 3-year, $45 million contract, which was league value. I don't think he was overpaid. I don't think he was underpaid. I don't think he took a team hometown discount. Now he has had an unbelievable off-the-charts type year. Do you think Howie Roseman will say, we really do need to take care of this guy? He did. He outperformed everything. His expectations, our expectations. That's kind of the way the league works. Guys get annoyed. How far does Hassan need to push the envelope if he really wants to get this done before the season starts? How do you think it plays the rest of camp?
If I were Howie, I would tweak his deal. And it's pretty easy to do. You give him a couple extra $1 million, you add a year on the contract, and you make the player happy. That's what I would do. The Eagles are very disciplined. And they have Nolan Smith, and they're very forward thinking, and they might say, well, how much tread is on the tire and all that kind of stuff. Can he do it again? I think that's how you get in trouble. Whereas, you give them a couple extra million to say, hey, we love you, pat them on the back, sort of, it's more of a motivational technique than anything else for me. I think it would be better for the team. When you sit and say and play hard line on situations like this, and I get it, I get both sides because you don't want to set the precedent. But, you can go back and say, Jody, all right, when you're top 5 in defensive player of the year voting, that's the precedent. When you're getting 20 sacks and running and have a run to the Super Bowl as the best defensive player we have, or at least the most impactful defensive player we have, that's the precedent. How many people are going to reach that precedent?
Right. Going forward.
So I don't see any downside to it, but I'll be the first to acknowledge how he's smarter than me with stuff like this. Obviously, Reddick doesn't have a ton of leverage. The leverage for Howie Roseman is keep one of your best players happy as happy as a clam, and I don't see the downside. Yeah, you don't go long term. You don't say you just give him a couple extra $1 million. You tack a year on. It's better for salary cap purposes anyway. It's easy. It's easy in my view.
Yeah. The downside is at some point you got to pay for it. If you're going to spread it out over time and add years to the contract, those voidable.
They've proven they don't care about that. They just don't care about that. They just don't. I mean, we can talk about it, but they've proven time and that they don't care about it. So are they going to care about it with Hassan Reddick? And again, we're talking a much lower, talking a couple, literally $2-3 million. That's all I'm talking about. They're not going to. They don't care about that. They've proven it time and time again with big contracts. Jalen Hurts being the most notable. Yeah, that would be disingenuous for the Eagles to say, "Oh, we all of a sudden care about it." But I don't think that's the way they do business. I don't think that is. And all of this conversation, I don't know if Hassan Reddick is upset. Maybe he's got a sore groin. Sometimes a sore groin is a sore groin. And sometimes a sore groin is, hey, I'm not doing this bull bleep unless you pay me.
And only Hassan knows for sure. And he is surely one of the most important defensive pieces for the Eagles, just overall pieces for the Eagles. And the starting middle linebacker might be a guy who falls into that category as well. Yeah. I know you reported yesterday that both Nakobe Dean and James Bradbury left with injuries, went into the tent. Both came back out and stood on the sidelines, didn't participate again, but neither one of them had to go inside the facility, so it doesn't look like anything major injury-wise. But you did see the Eagles start to scramble at the linebacker position when Nakobe Dean wasn't out there for the rest of practice. Yeah, how's this Eagle linebacker core going to look if Nakobe Dean really gets hurt this year?
Boy, I mean, I knew it. Yeah, no, we've talked about it a lot on this show, and I've said the Eagles have gone too far when it comes to devaluing the linebacker position. For the most part, I agree with them, but I think they've taken it too far. And when you saw it manifest itself, and if it was for one morning, we're not talking about 4 games or 5 games. When you saw it manifest itself for one morning in the summer, and you say, wow, Christian Ellis and Nicholas Morrow are your first team linebackers. You know how we described it to Tone last night? Granted, all right, Eagles fans get mad. They always get mad. You're negative, blah, blah, blah. If this were the Dallas Cowboys linebacker group, they would be killing the Cowboys. They would be killing them, laughing at them, saying, what are they doing? Or the New York Giants or Washington or whatever. This linebacker.
Who would be killing them?
Eagles fans.
Oh, Eagles fans. Okay, gotcha.
Would be killing those particular teams. This is bad. This is bad. This is a bad room, a bad group, a bad idea. Any other bads I can get in there, Jody? something's got to be
All
added to
right,
this
then
position.
I want to revisit this because I know you got to run out of here in about 3-4 minutes to go to Eagles camp because you and I disagreed on this earlier this summer. And it's a complete hypothetical because I don't think it can happen. At one point, I thought it could happen, but now I don't. Patrick Queen, linebacker, Baltimore Ravens, 5th-year option, not picked up. They draft a linebacker, I believe in the 3rd round, kid out of Clemson, that looks like a natural replacement for Patrick Queen. And I suggested the Birds should have interest in him. And for what he's accomplished and where he was drafted and everything else, I thought the price on the open market would be a 3rd-round pick. Your stance was there's no way Howie Roseman gives up a day 2 pick for a linebacker. Just not happening, Jody. They don't do that. That's not the way they evaluate linebacker. Well, Johnny Mack is pretty outspoken today about how bad that linebacker room is right now. And if Nakobe Dean goes down, oh my God, it looks pretty damn empty to me. Does it have that big an effect that the Eagles would change their overall stance on what they'd be willing to pay for an upgrade as far as draft capital goes in a deal?
No, they still only get, but here's the thing, Jody, and this is the difference between, taking linebackers in the 1st round like Patrick Queen or even, Roquan Smith, top 10 picks, Devin White, top 10 picks versus what the Eagles have done. There's a comfortable middle. Like, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, whatever they got him for, a 5th and a 7th or 4th and a 7th, I forget. I'd have to look it up. But a couple day 2, day 3 picks. There's going to be a linebacker out there, maybe on the final year of his rookie deal, that's a huge upgrade on what they have that they can get for day 3 capital. So I'm not saying you got to make a splash and you got to get Queen or you got to get Devin White or you got to get a big name, but you got to get a Chauncey Gardner. And this is not CJ now after the people saw him, CJ last year, where it's like, he's a nickel back. He's moving to safety. And we're all saying, is this going to work? And it worked out obviously really well. And I'm not saying that's going to work out, but you're going to be able to get a player like that who's hasn't broken through in their original city and is going to be better than what the Eagles have. And what the Eagles have, obviously, is Nick Morrow and Christian Ellis and Davion Taylor and Ben Van Sumeren and Sean Bradley and players like that. And they're, Kyron Johnson, they tried him at off-ball linebacker, moved him back to edge rusher. In the spring, they tried him, moved him back to edge rusher. Now he took a couple snaps there. Nolan took a couple snaps. Derek Barnett took a couple snaps at linebacker in developmental period. This is one day, Jody. Not even one day.
Half a day. Half a day, because he practiced to begin with. It was just a half a practice that they had to come up with answers, and they seemed like they were grasping from all over the place. John, I know you got to go, and you're a great reporter. I want you to figure that guy for me. And today's a Friday, so we got Monday. Who's that guy who you wouldn't have to give up a day 2 pick for? Who's a linebacker who might be available via trade because the other team, and there aren't many teams in the NFL that you can say this about, have linebacker depth. The entire league seems to be searching for linebackers. But I've combed the rosters and tried to find that guy, and I'll be damned if I can do it. So I'll put you to the test.
I'll take up that baton. I'll have to carve out some time because it can't be hard, Jody, because everybody's backups are better than the Eagles' backups.
Right,
Bottom line, as dominant.
Maybe I overrate the Eagles' backups because I couldn't find that guy. That I said, all right, well, is this guy really that much better than? Yeah, I tried. I couldn't come up with that guy.
As dominant
if you do, I'll tip my hat to you, big guy.
As dominant as the Eagles' defensive line is, as dominant defensive front, I'll call it, as dominant as the offensive line is, as dominant as the cornerbacks are, the quarterback, the top of the wide receiver group. This is a very, very, very good football team. To call them bottom 5 at linebacker is probably being kind. They're bottom 2. I think PFF rated him 31.
Yeah,
so they
31
rated somebody,
out of 32. Yeah.
So they rated somebody worse, and I forget who they rated worse. But everybody has got better options than the Eagles, basically, in the NFL at that position.
And the reporting on Nakobe Dean, BLG, all the beat guys, I did I say this with you? I don't remember where I said it. I thought it was a really good line by Elliot Shore Parks. I heard him on WIP. He said it's amazing in that Nakobe Dean, all last year, every single practice, so far the practices this year, has not made an eye-opening play, but has not made an eye-opening mistake either. Because every once in a while you get beat on coverage, you look real bad, you go, what the hell was that all about? He said he knows Nakobe's there. He sees him on the field. He just never makes this great play, tip ball, come up with an interception, gets blatantly beat by Goddard on coverage. No, he just gets through practice. And hey, at this point, that's good for the Eagle linebackers. If you're not messing anything up, that's pretty damn good.
And we don't have time because I got to go, but we'll talk about that next week. I mean, there's the assumption that Nakobe's going to be Fred Warner. Yeah, that ain't true either. So, again, I think the Eagles have taken it too far at the linebacker position. I agree with their sentiment for the most part. They've just taken it too far. When it comes to devaluing.
One thing to devalue, and then there's no value, which is unfortunately where the Eagles might be at their linebacker position. All right, so who's talking today? Who are you going to hear?
Sean Desai, so he'll get plenty of Nakobe Dean questions. If 42 will allow me to get there in time.
Pretty much a given. Johnny Mac, safe travels. Johnny Mac and I will be back here Monday. I'm Birds 365. All right, rest of the way. Going to do a little different today. Got a new guest here on the show. He's doing a podcast here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We're going to talk with Bill Colarulo, whose podcast is Legal Hands to the Face, or Two Face. Bill's going to jump in and do a spot for me a little later in the show. Brian Cameron, managing editor of the Philadelphia Sports Network.com, is going to jump in. Johnny Mac here with you on a Football Friday on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left. Fake 'em out. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again. You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh. EAGLES. Eagles.
Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365, a football Friday. Johnny Mac already off to Eagles practice today. So for the next half hour or so, I will be joined by Bill. I want to get your name right, Bill. Colarulo. I got that right?
Nailed it, Jody. What's going on, man?
How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, man. The season is finally here. It felt like an eternity after that holding call in Super Bowl 57, but we're here, man.
Jeez, I try to keep that out of the back of my mind, but it does come up every once in a while. Bill is a host on JAKIB Media, does a podcast, Legal Hands to Face. How do you
Legal Hands to the Face. Twitter handle is Legal Hands to Face, but the show is Legal Hands to the Face.
Oh, okay. So there is a the in there in one of the two. I want to make sure I get that right. How do you come up with the name for both your Twitter handle, or your X handle, should I say, and the show?
Yeah, that's going to take a while to get used to, that X over Twitter.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet the other day, or an X the other day. Someone said, we're still calling Delaware Ave, even though it's been changed to Columbus Boulevard years ago. we're never going to stop calling Twitter.
Exactly.
But I'm an attorney, so I'm a lawyer chasing the Philly sports talk dream, Jody. So that's the Legal Hands to the Face aspect. I practiced law for about 15 years, was a trial attorney, and now I'm taking those skills. I'm seeing in the comments people are saying not to trust me, but don't trust a lawyer, people are saying. But so I'm doing the Philly sports talk now.
We love our streamers, and we thank them all for now. Before you ever get a chance to hear what Bill's got to say, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you don't like what he says, you don't have to hit it again. But hit it first for me and Johnny Mac for the first segment. If you sit here and read the stream, you'll just want to pull your hair out. And I don't have any left to pull. The very little strands I have left are not enough. So don't do that to yourself. Don't be affected by them while you and I are talking. All right. So you made the jump over from attorney to media personality, content provider here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Good time to do it, with the Eagles coming into a season where they are certainly the NFC favorite, one of the favorites to actually walk away with a championship. But I think I saw on one of your tweets, one of your posts about why the Eagles can do that where others haven't. Only 8 times in the history of the league has a team gone from Super Bowl loser back to the Super Bowl. Only 3 times have they actually won it. The Rams, the Patriots did against the Rams a couple of years ago. But other than that, you got to go back 40 years to find a team that did it. Why do you think the Eagles are suitable for doing something like that this year?
Yeah, you're not kidding, man. The odds are against them for sure. And on top of all that, the hardest schedule in the league from a strength of schedule. But I think there's a few reasons why they're going to do it. Number one, great veteran leadership on this team. You look around that locker room, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, you have Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, and let's not forget Brandon Graham. I mean, the crazy thing is, Jody, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and Jason Kelce, if they all stay healthy this year, they're going to finish as 1, 2, and 3 with the most games played in an Eagles uniform in franchise history. All 3 of those guys. That's pretty remarkable. But I think the real reason they have a shot to do it is you just look at this NFC. What other quarterback in this NFC, now that Rodgers is gone, what other quarterback, Tom Brady's retired, who's even on a level close to Jalen Hurts? And I think when you look at the combination between quarterback and head coach, the Eagles have a real advantage over the rest of the NFC.
There is no doubt in my mind that coming into the season, Jalen Hurts is the number 1 quarterback in the NFC. And we do this all the time here on the show, and you haven't had a chance to, so we'll let you get your opinion involved too. I think it's a 2-team race. I think it's the Eagles. I think it's the 49ers, and then I think there's a drop-off. Now, there are other, and we here in Philadelphia, we look at the Dallas Cowboys in a very specific light. I like to get others' opinions on the Dallas Cowboys who don't come at it from a perspective of despise the way most people in Philadelphia do for the Dallas Cowboys. And certainly nationally, they're getting more credit and props than maybe we do here in Philadelphia. But I'm sorry, and this has nothing to do with bias or dislike or whatever. I think Cowboys are overrated. Jerry Jones said this week he thinks the Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, and Giants better be on notice because the Dallas Cowboys are better. At certain positions, they are. They went out and upgraded their wide receiver position. They went out and got a top flight cornerback because across from Diggs was a problem last year. But they also have some issues. They lost a tight end, and I don't think they significantly replaced him. Just double checking, Bill. You're not going to try out for the Cowboys for their kicker position next week, are you? Because they still don't have a kicker. And oh, by the way, that Zach Martin guy is sitting at home. And the owner has already put it on record that, hey, I got to save my money because I got to pay my pass rushing linebacker at some point. He's going to get the big bucks, Micah Parsons. So that's good. Really alienate one of the best offensive linemen in football. I don't think the Cowboys are as big a threat as other people do nationally to the Eagles. I think it's Eagles or 49ers or good luck with any other prediction. How do you break out the NFC?
Yeah, I think you're right, Jody, with regard to the 49ers. The one thing that concerns me about that team, if I'm the 49ers fans, is their quarterback. I know Brock Purdy last year came on, Mr. Irrelevant, played really off the charts for what you would have expected from a rookie that's drafted as the last pick in the draft. Who's going to be their quarterback this year? Is Trey Lance ready? Is it Brock Purdy? Is it Sam Darnold? So as much as I think Kyle Shanahan is a good coach, I think where they lack is going to be at the quarterback position. But jumping over to the Cowboys, and I'm an Eagles fan.
Let me just interrupt you there. What if Purdy just picks up where he left off? He got hurt, and he got hurt against Eagles.
Yep.
And the 49er fans overstated we would have won the game. If you had stopped that, we could have won the game. I think most people would have been okay. But to go as far as we would have won the game, a little obnoxious 49er fans and 49er players too. But he's in camp. He's throwing the ball fine. I've seen comments from his teammates that say they can't even tell that he was hurt last year. If Purdy picks up right from where he left off last year, he might be the second best quarterback in the NFC behind Hurts.
It's possible because I don't think there's a lot of competition to be the second best quarterback in the NFC. I just think that I'm not saying Brock Purdy's not going to be a decent quarterback in this league, but I think what you saw at the end of last season is going to be the exception, not the norm with him. I think he's going to be an average quarterback, potentially an above average quarterback, but the guy was really playing lights out at the end of the year last year. There's going to be more tape on him. You know that. You know how these defensive coordinators probably reviewed things over the offseason to start game planning for him. But their defense is what scares me. It's not going to be their quarterback. It's going to be the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers. But, yeah, if Brock Purdy can prove that he is really that guy, that's going to be the team the Eagles need to beat. And I think home field advantage is going to be important. Only one team gets that bye now. So can the Eagles, with this tough schedule, be the number one seed in the NFC? That's going to be a big question mark.
And that home field advantage probably decided in the game between the Eagles and the 49ers during the regular season, which is you're in Philadelphia. So advantage Eagles on that one. But let me ask you about your stance of, there's more tape on Brock Purdy. Everyone's now seen the tape on Brock Purdy. After Jalen Hurts' first year as a first-year full-time starter, he played the handful of games stepping in for Carson Wentz, but we knew that Jalen was going to end up being better than that. The question was how much better. Had the good, solid second year, got him to the playoffs. All right, got beat badly by the Bucs down there in Tampa. Didn't everyone have that much more tape on Jalen Hurts going into last season? And didn't he take it to a level that none of us expected him to be able to get to?
Yeah, I think that's the wonderful thing about Jalen Hurts that we get to see firsthand is you see his work ethic. You see how the guy tries to improve every single week. We don't see Brock Purdy. Now, I know Brock Purdy is working his way back from injury. Is he going to be able to take that leap that Jalen Hurts took from year one to year two? That's a big question mark. No one's going to know that until we see him play this year. But
There's no way he takes that leap. The question is, can he maintain? Can he be the same quarterback he was last year? If that's the case, he's the second best quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah, and to your point about the 49ers being a threat, they also don't need Brock Purdy to beat Jalen Hurts. That's not how they're going to win games. They're winning games with their defense. They're winning games with Christian McCaffrey from the backfield, short little passes to George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. As long as Brock Purdy doesn't make mistakes, which he really didn't do last year, that gives them a chance to win every single week. So they're definitely a threat. But to the Cowboys, I agree with you that the Dallas Cowboys probably took a step back this year. But one of the things that really concerns me about them, and look, I'm an Eagles fan. I hate the Cowboys more than anybody else. But you look at Dak Prescott. I know he's been a turnover machine over the last couple of years. He had the injury bug last year. But you look at his record against the NFC East in his career, and he's 27-7 against the NFC East. He's 8-3 against the Eagles, 9-2 against the Commanders, and 10-2 against the Giants in his career. So if the Eagles want to win the NFC East again and be the first repeat champ in almost 20 years, they have to figure out a way to beat Dak Prescott, because even when this guy is not playing well, he seems to play well against the Eagles and the rest of the NFC East, and that could be a problem.
Yeah, and he specifically, here's the one thing I'm hoping for this year, and it's not with eagle-colored glasses on, it's just NFL fan glasses on. I want to see Dak Prescott against Jalen Hurts twice. Last year, we got it no times because the Eagles beat the Cowboys without Dak, and the Cowboys beat the Eagles without Jalen Hurts. I just hope they match up twice this year, that both quarterbacks are healthy for both of those two matchups. All right, so, and the other thing about the Cowboys, just want to get this in. You got an opinion on how good a play caller Mike McCarthy's going to be this year for Dallas?
I have zero confidence in Mike McCarthy as a head coach. I mean, any success that he had in the past was because he had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback in Green Bay. And we saw last year in Dallas, he is not a good football coach. And now he's taken over play calling. Not looking forward to that if I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, I'm not as down. John McMullen and I agree on this. Some people just bury Mike McCarthy. I think you got to give him credit for what he did accomplish in Green Bay. It always helps to have Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's a bad head coach, but I just don't think he's a good play caller. So because the Cowboys got bounced in the second round of the playoffs, somebody had to pay a price. Let's run the offensive coordinator out of town and turn it over to a guy who I just don't think was all that great when he was a play caller in Green Bay. So yeah, he'll be under the microscope for that all year, at least for me, and probably from a whole lot of others. But I don't bury him as a head coach. I just don't know how good a play caller he's going to be. So the Cowboys will be the number one agitator in the NFC East, or will they? Do you think either the Commanders or the Giants? The Giants legitimately made the playoffs last year. Went into Minnesota, won a game. Came here to Philadelphia, got their tail kicked basically 3 times by the Eagles last year. So I'm not talking head-to-head Giants against the Eagles, but just Giants overall. Or are you a Sam Howell fan? What are you thinking about the other two teams in the division that the Eagles have to face this year?
2 good head coaches on those other teams. And I think Ron Rivera is a great coach. I think Brian Daboll, the Giants, finally got it right after Ben McAdoo and Joe Judge. The Mara family got it right. I think Brian Daboll is a great coach. We saw what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo. That's a team that is a dark horse for the NFC East. I just don't know how good Daniel Jones is going to be this year. He played well last year, but I have a couple of buddies in New York. They are very high on Daniel Jones. Think that you're going to see him make a big leap this year. I just don't see it. I just don't see him taking that big of a leap. But again, does he have to? Does he have to be as good as Jalen Hurts? Can they win games if Saquon Barkley can stay healthy? But I do have a lot of confidence in Brian Daboll as a coach, so they concern me a little bit. But they're not as good on paper, anywhere near as good on paper with that roster as the Eagles are. And then, like you mentioned with the Commanders, they have a lot of problems at their quarterback position. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, no. Our buddy Ed Krause, who comes on the show all the time, big Sam Howell fan. I'm not as big a Sam Howell fan as he is, but we'll see. If the Eagles don't go 5-1 in division this year, I'm going to be disappointed. If they come back 4-2, and that's what they were last year, because they lost to the Cowboys, and I think people have tried to annex it from their memories that they got beat by the Commanders here in Philadelphia. The only game that Jalen Hurts started last year that the Eagles lost, other than, of course, the Super Bowl, was that Washington game where they turned the ball over as much as they did. No, they need to be 5-1 in division this year. They got to be able to sweep the Commanders. If they lose one along the way, I could live with it. If it's the Cowboys down and down, I live with it. But I think they really do need to go 5-1 if they want to have that overall home field advantage with the tough overall schedule that they're
what's
playing.
crazy, Jody, is both Cowboys games will be done by week 14. They don't play the Giants for the first time until week 16. So they play the Giants week 16 and week 18. Those games may not even matter by the time you get there. I don't know why the NFL put both of the Giants games so late in the season.
And the funny thing about last year was they played the Giants the last game of the season last year too, and the Giants didn't play. They went to the backup reserve because they knew they were locked into the wild card, couldn't move up, couldn't move down. The Eagles actually did need to win that game, brought Hurts back from the injury list because there was the outside possibility if they lost, the 49ers or the Cowboys could catch them and get home field advantage throughout. So it was really weird. The Eagles had already locked up the division, but or close to locked up the division. They actually needed to play that last game. We'll see how those late games play out this year. All right, need you on the record for what Johnny Mack and I were talking about right before you came on. Eagles in the linebacker position. Nakobe Dean left the field yesterday, went into the injury tent. Seems okay, doesn't look like it's any major injury, and I kind of expect him back out there on the field, maybe limited today in practice. But John said with Nakobe Dean out of the lineup yesterday, the linebackers just looked a little thin. The Eagles even got a little desperate, throwing certain guys at the outside linebacker position that they don't usually play there. Nolan Smith and Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett getting some linebacker snaps yesterday. The Eagles are thin. Some might say woefully thin at the linebacker position. And if they suffer an injury, it gets real thin real fast. They have basically, with the moves they made this offseason, previous seasons, and like, we can read between the lines on how much they value the linebacker position. Answer, not much, if at all. But they do have to have linebackers out there. They're not going to play super big nickel where they play 5 safeties on the field at the same time. So somebody's got to play linebacker. How do you think the Eagles handle the linebacker position? Will Howie Roseman be looking to make a trade? How do you think the linebacker shakes out between now and opening day?
I've been doing videos on our social media channel all offseason about this. I am very concerned about the linebacker position, and I've been saying it since they let TJ Edwards walk. I was fine with them letting Kazir White walk. I thought he was an up-and-down player last year. But TJ Edwards, I think a lot of guys underestimated how good he was last year. He played 94% of the snaps, led the team in tackles, was number 7 in the NFL in tackles. He wore the green dot, called the plays last year. So they let both linebackers walk, and we're putting everything. I know Dean got hurt last year, but even when Nakobe Dean is healthy, we're putting a lot on this guy's shoulders. He has only played 34 snaps as a defensive player in the NFL. I know we're all hopeful he's going to go back to what he was at Georgia. I am as well. But if he's not, what do you have other than Dean? They bring in Nicholas Morrow. He was an up-and-down player in Chicago. Obviously, Chicago thought that they were getting an upgrade. They paid TJ Edwards more money and let us take Morrow. So
significantly more money.
Exactly. So, they think Morrow's a downgrade from TJ Edwards. And then who do you have after him? I know a lot of people are high on Christian Ellis. He's another young guy. We've really not seen him play that much defense. He's been a special teamer. You got Sean Bradley, local kid from Mount Holly, New Jersey, special teamer. So like you said yesterday, throwing Nolan Smith back there, Derek Barnett, I don't know what they're going to do. I would love to see them bring a guy in, but like we've seen year after year, Howie Roseman and the Eagles don't value that position. So I don't know who they could even bring in at this point. And I was looking up some people yesterday trying to see, is there anyone that they could pry away? A name that came up, a familiar name, would Jordan Hicks potentially be available from the Minnesota Vikings? I don't know. Is that a guy that they maybe would bring back? He's got familiarity with this city. But Minnesota just restructured his deal, so they may be keeping him. But they are very, very thin at that linebacker position. I know in camp, we've seen a few times they've gone to a 3 safety look, which may help a little bit with that linebacker position. But I'm concerned. I've been concerned. I really would have liked to have seen them bring back TJ Edwards this year, but they don't value the position.
Yeah, they just don't. John and I are both big TJ Edwards fans going into last year, and then he had an unbelievable career year and got himself paid, and he got to go home to Chicago. So the Bears put much more of an emphasis on the linebacker. We'll see how that plays out this year. And speaking of the Bears, yesterday they signed Yannick Ngakoue, who has been one of the better free agents still sitting out there well into training camp now. I did come to an agreement on a 1-year, $10 million contract. And the reason why I bring that up is because the Bears are a team that has been mentioned in some media speculation reports as to a possible landing spot for Derek Barnett. The Eagles have tremendous depth right now at the edge pass rusher position. And Derek Barnett coming back from the injury. The Eagles redid his deal. You just mentioned that the Vikings just redid a deal. Usually when that happens, it's because they want to keep the player. If you think you can trade the player, when you redo a guy's deal, ask him to compromise on some things with you, usually it signifies that you want to keep the player. People had been suggesting off season that Derek Barnett is a prime trade candidate, that if he can show that he's healthy, he's still worth something. Day 3 pick, chances are, but still worth something on the open market if they were to trade him. Well, the Bears were a team that looked like they could use an upgrade at the edge pass rusher position. They filled that void yesterday by signing Yannick Ngakoue. So Derek Barnett, we haven't had you on the show yet. He's a guy that yours truly has a specific opinion about. Not a big fan. Is he going to be a member of this team this year? And if so, how often is he going to see the field?
Yeah, I mean, they are deep at that edge position. But I think just like we were saying that Howie Roseman and the Eagles don't value the linebacker position, we know how much they value that defensive line, especially their edge rushers. So I think you're going to see Derek Barnett on this team. I don't think that he's going to bring back a lot in return if you tried to trade him. They restructured his deal. You're not paying him a lot. And we know players get injured. Last year, the Eagles were very, very lucky to have all 22 of their opening day starters playing that Super Bowl. But if one of these edge rushers goes down, it'd be nice to have a former first-round pick. I'm still hanging my hat on the fact that he broke Reggie White's record in college.
You got to let that go. You really have to let that go. It doesn't matter anymore. We are well removed from that. That's why he was drafted when he was drafted. I don't even hold that against him anymore. I just don't think he's got it. That's why I'm not sure why. Other than he's a good team guy and he's a hard worker, he just hasn't performed on the field. I don't even hold the disappointment of where he was picked in the draft against him anymore. I just don't know if he can play.
What's frustrated me most about him is it always seemed like he had a personal foul penalty in the worst times. You know, it seems he's a little bit undisciplined. But I think with the Eagles, they brought back Brandon Graham, who had a great season last year. But how much can you rely on BG this year? He is getting older. You know, I'm hopeful he's going to have another great season. But if, God forbid, one of these guys goes down, I think it would be nice to have some depth at that position. They have Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham. But I think with what we know about how much the Eagles value this edge position, I think you're going to see Derek Barnett on this team. That's why they restructured him. Who can you get for cheaper than what they're going to pay Derek Barnett? That's the question.
I think they have a couple of guys even further down on their bench that can do exactly what Derek Barnett can do and more if need be. All right. Do want to get your evaluation on another key position for the Eagles this year. Major changes because they let their 2 starting safeties walk away during the offseason as free agents. Most people pretty darn sure that Reed Blankenship's going to step in and be able to handle one of those 2 starting spots. He's been getting first-team reps all throughout the preseason and was even made available by the media. I judge between the lines as to who the Eagles make available. Christian Ellis, all of a sudden available to the media. Wonder why? Because he's going to play. Reed Blankenship, all of a sudden available to the media. Why? Because he's going to be the starting safety on our field about 100% of the time this year. How do you think the safety position shakes out? Because it seems like it's still up for grabs. That's never a bad thing when it's actually decided by competition. You just hope somebody grabs a job by the throat. Who do you think that's going to be at the safety position for the Eagles?
Yeah, you're 100% right. Reed Blankenship, I think, has the one safety position locked up. He had a promising rookie season last year. Undrafted, comes in. We saw right away what this guy's skill set could be. Very instinctual on that interception by Aaron Rodgers. Broke on the ball, good quickness. So I'm okay with Reed Blankenship, but it's that other position that's a huge question mark. People hear the name Kevon Wallace, and fans are getting nervous, but Kevon Wallace is battling for that second starting position, which is crazy to me. I was out on Kevon Wallace. I had Barrett Brooks on my podcast recently, and he said, look out for Kevon Wallace this year. So to his credit, Barrett was real high on Kevon Wallace going into this season, said, I think he's going to win that second safety position. I thought he was crazy. I didn't even think Kevon Wallace would have a chance to win the position, but they're giving him an opportunity. The Eagles did bring in Terrell Edmonds from Pittsburgh. Solid player. I don't think you're going to see any flashy plays from him, but I don't know if you'll see a lot of mistakes either. So I was okay with Terrell Edmonds, Reed Blankenship, but Kevon Wallace makes me a little bit nervous. He's had his opportunities. Last year, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson goes down. They don't give it to Kevon Wallace. They give it to the undrafted rookie, Reed Blankenship. So Kevon Wallace, that name makes me a little bit nervous, but hey, he's working hard. Maybe he can prove us all wrong in his fourth year with the Eagles. But the expectations were through the roof when we drafted Wallace because safety from Clemson, everybody automatically assumed Brian Dawkins. Well, you're not going to live up to those expectations.
Didn't we go through that with Derek Barnett and Reggie White? Hey,
Yeah,
let's double
exactly.
down and do it again and think Kevon Wallace is the next Brian Dawkins. Don't make that mistake, Eagle fans. And you're right. Wallace has practiced very well. John's told us a couple of times that he's opened some eyes at practice, and good on the Eagles that they stayed open-minded. Part of it is out of necessity because the safeties that they brought in were both inexpensive. It wasn't like they dedicated funds to go out and get a proven safety to replace the two departed starters. So if Kevon Wallace steps up to the task and earns the job this year, I'll be perfectly fine with that. I'm not discounting that possibility. Some people are. I won't, but I'm not going to say, all right, well, it's great. He looked great in 4 practices. Eagles are going to be great at the safety position. I'm not going to go there either. All right, last question I have for you is about the head coach. New coordinators at both the offensive and defensive sides. That's what happens when you have as good a season as the Eagles have. People want to take your coordinators and make them head coaches, which, by the way, good luck to both of those guys this year. Colts and Cardinals going to be just flat out bad. But gets to elevate one guy from his staff on the offensive side, brings in a new guy on the defensive side. So they have some holes to fill. The staff was, in my eyes, outstanding last year. But Sirianni has had 2 very successful seasons, playoffs year 1, Super Bowl year 2. I don't know how you can ask him to do much more than that. And he seems to have won over the town as well. What does Nick Sirianni do in year 3? Kind of a tough ask, isn't it, with the success he's had? What are you looking out of the head coach this year of the Eagles?
Yeah, it really is. And you mentioned, though, with success, this is what happens. You lose coaches. But I got this stat, I think, from Reuben Frank a couple of weeks ago. Losing both coordinators after appearing in the Super Bowl has only happened twice since 1994. You had the 94 49ers and the 04 Patriots who were in the Super Bowl who lost both coordinators. So this is not something that happens often. So Nick Sirianni definitely has his work cut out for him. But I do think he's a good coach. I think he's built a great culture there. And the one positive is, at least on the offensive side of the ball, Brian Johnson was here, does have familiarity with Jalen Hurts, played for his dad. So they've known each other for a while. So I think the offense should hopefully not miss a beat. I know Johnson's never called plays in the NFL. We were talking about McCarthy not being a great play caller. We don't know how Brian Johnson's going to be as a play caller. I thought Shane Steichen was a really good play caller. And I know Brian Johnson talked to the media yesterday about how a lot of that is done in the week leading up to the game, which is true. But there's still a feel for the game. I mean, you know, Jody, we've seen it week after week. There is a feel for the game. Doug Peterson was another great play caller back in 2017, where they get a feel for the game and they're able to call the right plays at the right times. Big question mark for Brian Johnson. but you have to hope Sirianni is able to be in his ear. I was reading a story yesterday about how in the middle of the hallway at the NovaCare complex, Sirianni will turn to Brian Johnson out of nowhere and say, 3rd and 8, 28-yard line. What are you calling? So, he's doing things to try to get Johnson ready. But I just hope that Sirianni has built enough of a culture here that they can survive losing both coordinators and that Super Bowl hangover. I mean, that's a real thing, like we've talked about earlier.
Is. And I thought you made a good point there that flew in the face of what Nick Sirianni did. There's a flow to the game. There's a feel to the game. You just throw somebody 3rd and 8 from the 28-yard line. When do you go? Well, what the hell happened the previous 8 plays? That's what I need to know to tell you what the perfect call is on 3rd and 8 from the 28. Just blindly picking it out without any context is unfair. But that's what Brian is going to be tasked to do this year, because James Steichen was very good. I thought he had a tremendous grasp on the flow of a game and being able to call just the right play. We'll see if Johnson's up to the task. I need to tell you this. You were up to the task today. Thank you very much, Bill, for hopping on here. Give the people all the info on if they want to be able to check out your podcast and follow you on X. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, Legal Hands to the Face on all your social platforms, all your podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcast. And we're going to start doing a show live every Monday night on the JAKIB Sports Network once the season starts. So check us out, Legal Hands to the Face. Love to engage. Give us a like, give us a follow. And if you're feeling up to it, give us a share.
You got it. Thank you very much. And no, we're going to get you up from time to time here on Birds 365. Thanks for doing it with us today, bud.
I enjoyed it, Jody. Have a good day, man.
My pleasure. That is Brian Colarulo. Now, member of the JAKIB Media broadcasting staff, and we'll get him up as a guest every once in a while. I thought he did a real nice job with me here today. Brian Cameron, managing editor from the Philadelphia Sports Network, has also been on with us before. Looking forward to talking to him again. He'll join us this upcoming hour on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. E-A-G-L-E-S. Eagles.
Johnny Mac here with you on Birds 365. Johnny Mac already on his way. Probably listening to the coach. No, not till after 9:30. So making his way over to the NovaCare complex. Coach Sean Desai is going to talk today. It'll be interesting to see if he likes what he's seen out of his players so far in his new system. Reed Blankenship talked to the media yesterday and did talk about the difference between Sean Desai's defense and Jonathan Gannon's defense. Said it's very similar, that there are a lot of tendencies and tenets that are the same. He just made it sound like Desai's defense is a little easier, that maybe the calls, maybe the descriptions, a little bit easier to comprehend, or maybe he's a second-year player, so he's understanding them a little bit better. You take it through the lens, you take it through, and it was Reed Blankenship yesterday that we got a feel for it. Be interesting to see how Sean Desai capsulizes his first week as an Eagle hands-on defensive coordinator. I guarantee you he's going to be asked about Nakobe Dean, who yesterday, in case you're just seeing it, catching up, didn't catch the media reports last night or jumped in early with us this morning. Nakobe Dean left the field yesterday with an injury. Didn't appear to be serious. Came back out of the tent afterwards. Stayed on the sidelines with the team. Did not go back into any further activities or drills or anything. But it just made it look like the Eagle linebacking core, if they lose Nakobe Dean. And that's saying something. When you take out a guy who got all of 32 snaps last year, that's all Nakobe Dean played last year from the line of scrimmage was 32 snaps. So he's basically a rookie plus. And the plus is not all that much, 32 snaps worse. And you take him out of the lineup, and all of a sudden you look like you're just lacking and or wanting. That's not a good sign. So Sean Desai, I'm sure, will be asked about just that today. He'll sing the praises of Sean Bradley, I'm sure. He'll sing the praises of Davion Taylor, I'm sure. Maybe even undrafted linebacker Ben Sumarin will get the praises of the coach. He's not going to admit to and or cop to the fact that, yeah, it's a little light room right now. You don't want to put the pressure on your general manager to have to be able to come up with something and get something done. You want to give Howie Roseman the leverage he needs to be able to, if he's got to make a trade. Let me put it this way. I think it's highly unlikely that the Eagles will wait all the way until roster cuts. And remember, with roster cuts this year, we'll change the NFL rules. It's just one big cut after the last preseason game. You go from 90 down to 53. Previous year's NFL, there had been cuts in stages that you would have to tell 10 guys at a time. I forget the exact numbers each and every single time. But there were cuts after basically almost every week of the preseason. So you trimmed your roster down. You will slice your roster this year with one big cut. Can the Eagles really wait till that last cut to say, all right, we're going to find a linebacker. Somebody else is going to cut a linebacker. We're going to be able to scoop up a linebacker that's cut by another team. That's a little risky because you don't know what other teams are going to cut down their linebacker. You look at a team's depth chart and roster, they can't possibly keep this many linebackers. It's a little bit of a risky way and a dicey way to do business. So my guess is Howie Roseman is actually going to be considering trading for a linebacker. So then you get the rub of, well, if you're going to trade for somebody, how much value do you put on them? And the Eagles have continually shown that they're not going to put an over-evaluation on the linebacker position. So we're in a balancing area here. They may acknowledge, they may show that they believe they have to upgrade the linebacker position, but they want to do so at a cost that they'll be okay with. Sometimes that's a very difficult balancing act to try and pull off, that basically, oh, we'll get someone, but we'll get him for cheap. because that's what we want to be. We want to be cheap about the linebacker position. Not going to be easy for the Eagles to pull off. Now, I hope Nakobe Dean is back out there in practice for the Eagles today. Hope he makes some eye-opening plays. And again, give him credit to Elliott Shore-Parks. He said this. I was listening to WIP in a car the other day, and I said, well, Elliott should know because he's there every day. I'm not. But the way that he put it, I thought was interesting. Nakobe Dean has not made any eye-opening plays defensively for the Eagles in any of the practices last year into this year. But he also never screws anything up. That he's where he's supposed to be. He makes the plays he's supposed to make. That, hey, you can look bad when you're out there on the field and get beaten coverage and or missed tackles or whatever else. He said it's amazing that he never has an eye-opening play or a worrisome play. That's the upside to the Eagles linebacker position as of right now. Make sure that your linebacker is not making downside plays. Very interesting to see where the Eagles go from here with the linebacker position. And Johnny Mack will be back on Monday to tell us how Nakobe Dean and or the other linebackers looked for the Birds in practice today. All right, Johnny Mack here with you on Birds 365. We will be joined next by Brian Cameron, the managing editor of PhiladelphiaSportsNetwork.com. We'll talk all things Eagles with Smith to Cameron next here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh. EAGLES. Eagles.
Football Friday here on Birds 365. Thanks for streaming in, everybody. Feel free to hit the like button if you're so desirous. Johnny Mack in, Johnny Mack out. He's over at Eagle practice already. But Brian Cameron, managing editor of PhiladelphiaSportsNetwork.com, good enough to jump in with us for a couple of minutes today. Brian, here's where I want to start with you, because I know you did a post on an article on it. Hassan Reddick and his contract. Whether it is a situation, that's the word Coach Sirianni used to describe it yesterday, or not, only the Eagles and Hassan know for sure, but some Eagle fans not happy because the media brought it up. I kind of bristle at that because Hassan Reddick was the one who brought it up. And being asked how he judges himself, he said some other players in the league judge by their salary. Well, you opened up the salary door, so now the question can be asked. It was, is this going to be a big deal? Is it going to be a lingering thing? Is it going to be something that people and those that cover the Eagles will be talking about for a week, 2 weeks, all season? How does this play itself out?
Well, the one way it won't play itself out is in the same manner as Terrell Owens, right? We're not going to go through that kind of spiel with Hassan Reddick doing push-ups in the driveway or anything of that sort.
No driveway push-ups? Damn,
No
I thought I was
driveway
going to get them again.
But the Eagles are in a unique situation, right? They just signed Hassan Reddick last season, and to be honest, like he overplayed his contract. The Eagles got him on a steal, and he's right now the 15th highest paid edge rusher in the league. You have guys who didn't perform as well as he did last season. They're getting paid more than $20 million a year. But again, it's an interesting situation because you sign Hassan Reddick as mostly a hybrid. He's a linebacker, he's an edge rusher, and in the history in NFL, like these guys don't really get paid that kind of money because there's no way to really judge them on how they're really being paid. But I think this gets resolved, and I think it's more so kind of a gentleman's agreement, right? You know, it's kind of let's see how the season plays out. At the end of the season, we could definitely talk about money, talk about an extension. But it's just with the way the culture is of the Eagles, I don't think this will be a lingering issue where you're going to have him holding out. You're going to have him being a little bit more outspoken about it. I think it's going to be kind of closed behind doors, and they'll definitely resolve the matter in no time.
Now, he is in a unique situation because guys outperform their contract all the time. Excuse me. Like Reed Blankenship, undrafted free agent, went in, played pretty successfully when filling in for an injured CJ. You would think I outperform my contract. Why don't you redo mine? Well, they can't. There are rules against redoing a rookie contract, and that's why Devontae Smith could go in and say, hey, yeah, how about redoing my contract? You can't. He is a veteran. He's a guy on a second contract, so it's something that at least as per the NFL rules could be done. Hassan has been dealing with a groin issue, and there is some speculation that the groin issue is actually a hold-in, that he termed it himself as a non-injury. It's just precautionary that he's not going full bore. He's not sitting out, but he's not going full bore, just participating in some 7-on-7 stuff like that. Do you think there is a possibility that we're already seeing remnants of Hassan wanting to get this thing done before the season gets started and get his contract ripped up and balanced out to where his production is?
It's a funny coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just weird. I mean, this isn't the Eagles of old where you have guys, just doing things like this, and it was one great season, right? A remarkable season with Hassan Reddick. I feel like the Eagles don't really reach the Super Bowl without his play. And he was a very key ingredient for this defense. Going forward, though, it's just, again, the Eagles are in a tough pickle. I mean, you have guys who could possibly be just as good as Hassan Reddick in the future with Nolan Smith. You have Josh Sweat come into his own, and you just drafted Jalen Carter as well. If it does have to get done, I don't see it being a forceful issue. I don't see it where Hassan's actually going to hold out. He seems like more of a stand-up guy after everything he's been through. He did take a hometown discount, which I'm pretty sure he's very aware of. Like you came here on a 3-year, $45 million.
But let me ask you that. Let me interrupt you there because you're not the first one to do this, and I disagree with where else I read it. Do you think there was really a better offer out there that somebody else put more than $3 and $45 on the table and Hassan said, nah, I want to go back to Florida. That's my home. I'm going to hang with my homies. I'll turn down more money elsewhere. To me, that's the definition of a hometown discount. I don't know that was offered to him elsewhere, that he came to the Eagles because he wanted to come home. If you've got any inside info that a team put more on the table, please share it with us. But I just don't know that was the case.
I don't think so much that was the case. I do believe that there were definitely other teams interested at the time. But when I say hometown discount, obviously he's coming back home. He's a Camden native. But the situation at hand was he was coming to a team where it was a stability, and he just came from Carolina. Carolina was not going to compete. Just came from Arizona before that. Arizona was not going to compete, and the Eagles were in prime position to be on the uprise, and he joined the club with that in mind. Now for the deal, I can't say if there was any other bigger deals. I would think a guy of his talent definitely had offers on the table after coming off back-to-back seasons with double-digit sacks. But I also think it wasn't a TJ Watt kind of offer. It wasn't a Miles Garrett kind of offer. It was just probably in the ballpark of 50 mil, 40 something mil. And he jumped ship with the Eagles.
And I'm glad everybody here in Philadelphia is glad that he did, because he had the season
Yeah,
that he had
absolutely.
last year. And that's why we're talking about a potential redo on his contract. If you look at just 1 year, he surely earned that for the numbers that he put up for the Eagles. All right. You mentioned Eagles on the uptick, team that it could get better, or it surely did. Tied in the Super Bowl 10 seconds ago. You can't get much closer without actually having a parade. But now they have to try and repeat as NFC champions, repeat being in the Super Bowl, and maybe a little change to the narrative at the end as to the final score of the game. We know the history of the National Football League. Not easy to do, not easy to get back to the Super Bowl the year before you go and come up just short. Why is this team going to be capable of doing that? Why do you believe the Eagles can get back to the Super Bowl 2 years running?
So being around this team, I stopped by training camp on Friday, and it was a different dynamic. This was a team that's just all business right now. You don't feel the effects of Jonathan Gannon being lost. You don't feel the effects of Shane Steichen moving on. You don't feel the effects of them missing any players from that key Super Bowl run. This team is primed to make a run back to where they just were, because to them it feels like it's unfinished business. The season hasn't finished yet, and you can tell they're right now their presence right now. It seems like it's in mid-season form with how they're handling everything. Everything's very routine. Everything's very structured. Everything's just very well put together for a team that's probably going to be the best team in the NFC. I mean, there's not many teams that could really compete with them. And when people mention the 49ers, yes, the 49ers, they have a ton of talent, but the 49ers don't have what the Eagles have, and that's a quarterback that can actually take them to the promised land. So it seems like it's a wide open field for them. It seems like they could definitely make the move to repeating again. And Nick Sirianni has done a tremendous job of keeping his team focused, keeping his team focused on the matter at hand. It's all business right now, and you can actually sense that with this team.
All right, we talked about the linebacker position and the fact that their main linebacker, starting linebacker, Nakobe Dean, who played all of 32 snaps, went down with an injury yesterday. And all of a sudden, the pickings looked a little slim at the linebacker position. If Ben Van Sumeren isn't ready to step in and play for this team, or Sean Bradley is not quite anything more than a special teams guy, somebody's going to have to play linebacker if they have an injury. Will Howie Roseman get aggressive here? And when I say aggressive, I mean make a trade for a player prior to the final cutdown. If they wait till the cutdown and then they're going to try and grab the best available one that does get released by another team, so be it. Or do the Eagles see an even bigger need that they can't afford to wait and then kind of cross your fingers and hope that type of player is out there? Will Howie Roseman get aggressive and try and make a trade for a linebacker before we get to final cuts?
I think it's a matter of picking your poison. Right now, the Eagles have the same situation they had last year, where the linebacker group is not as good. The safety group is not as good as well. We've seen that Nick Sirianni mentioned that there's a safety spot wide open, and that even Kayvon Wallace is in the mix to possibly start as well. So it's a matter of picking your poison. I personally think they should go for linebacker, just because you want that second level to be secure, right? If Nakobe goes down, are you really going to trust in Christian Ellis, Nicholas Morrow to lead that core? You have guys like Devin White who's expressed interest of moving on. You have Patrick Queen, who has a very unique situation in Baltimore. And the Eagles have the draft capital to make it happen. I mean, whether it costs that the Saints second round pick, or whether it costs a third or fourth, whatever case may be later on, they have the draft capital to make it happen. But I think it's a matter of what's more important to you. Is the safety more important, or is the linebackers? It doesn't seem like they're completely sold on Terrell Edmonds if that safety spot is still open. Reed Blankenship, we know he's definitely holding a spot, and you're not going to hand it to Sidney Brown just yet, just because he's an improving commodity. He's a rookie, so it's a matter of picking your poison. Howie hasn't really made much moves for linebackers in the past, which has haunted Eagles fans for a very long time. But if they are to make one, I think it's Patrick Queen or Devin White. Safeties, there's not too many options on board, in my opinion, for them to make them a trade for. I mean, Jeremy Chin doesn't look like he's leaving Carolina anytime soon. Antoine Winfield is probably the second best option in that case, but we don't know what the Bucs are trying to do with him. So it's truly just a matter of picking your poison with the Eagles.
Here's where I would question Howie Roseman, and I don't like questioning Howie Roseman because he's a very good general manager. Will he make the decision based on the Eagles' overall evaluation of how much stock they put into the position, or will he base the decision on the guys that are on the roster right now and how you evaluate them and how you think they could step in and play if need be? I hope he judges by what's on the roster rather than, well, here's what we generally evaluate linebackers. Here's the importance we put on safeties. I get it. Every team does that with every position. The Eagles, we certainly understand that much better because we evaluate them day in and day out. Do you think Howie will allow the guys who are here to dictate more than the way the Eagles have done their business in the past and the amount of importance they put on a position?
I think the first one it's a very political way for Howie to look at it, right? I mean, that's what we get from him in his press conferences. It's like, okay, we have these guys that can fill in, but we know deep in Howie's mind, he's already trying to figure out how to steal a hot commodity off any team. I think a deal does get done at some point this month. We saw Chauncey Gardner-Johnson get traded for in August last season. Howie has a knack of getting these great guys later in the offseason. And I think a deal definitely does get done. And I think he's at the point where, you need a linebacker. Like, you need somebody if Nakobe goes down, or you need somebody next to Nakobe. And a veteran presence next to Nakobe would be a genius move, because you're securing a position that's very, very important in this game that you've negated for so long. I don't think that the guys on the roster are going to dictate this. I think the matter of fact is just this team wants to get back to the Super Bowl, right? So it's either you're all in or you're not at this point.
All right, I want to ask you about another position that, again, Eagles don't put the biggest stock in, but they are not alone here. One of the main talking points during this offseason has been the devalued running back position across the league, not just Philadelphia Eagles, but across the league. Eagles have 5 running backs in their room right now, and if you want to take it 6 to add Brooks Kennedy, sorry, Brooks, your upside is practice squad. You're not making a 53-man roster. Last year, they went with 3 running backs all year. Trey Sermon was on the 53, but he was basically inactive every single game. He played all of 2 games. This year, they have an extra because they let Miles Sanders walk and added both Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift. So the numbers get crunched even more. The coach, again, yesterday decided to, again, unsolicited, talk up Trey Sermon, that he looks great in practice, and we were so happy when we got Trey, and we were pissed when the 49ers drafted him. He goes out of his way to sing Trey Sermon's praises. He must like the guy a lot, which is more power to him. I don't know whether Trey Sermon will or won't have a productive Eagles career. Do they think they can trade one of those guys? Do they think they're going to be able to make a deal? Add that as a sweetener to get their hands on a linebacker? The problem with that is everybody's devalued running backs in the NFL. So I don't know that adding a running back to a trade actually adds anything to the trade. How is running back going to play out for the Eagles this year?
I think it's one of their more loaded positions. I mean, you have so many guys with unique abilities. You have Boston Scott, who, shows up twice a year, right, against the Giants. You have Kenny Gainwell, who I coming into this offseason thought he would be the guy. Either he'll be the 1 or the 2, and he showed tremendous promise in the playoffs with his receiving ability. Then DeAndre Swift, who is just a Swiss Army knife, which is phenomenal to have. Rashad Penny, who was signed for pennies on the dollar. It just feels like if there's going to be an odd man out, right? The way Nick Sirianni has praised Trey Sermon, it's kind of like one of those things where either you're praising him to bring up his value, or you're praising him to move on from a Rashad Penny, or the case may be, after the offseason. They're in a very interesting predicament, especially with teams, teams like the Colts who are in a situation where their top guy doesn't want to play for them. He wants to leave. Those guys can be fishing for any kind of player that they can get. I just, at the end of the day, it feels like the running back room is going to end up with 4. I think it end up with Penny, Swift, Gainwell, and Scott. I think the Trey Sermon hype is that what it is? It's just hype for the moment. He probably ends up on the practice squad because no other team went fishing for him last year. The Eagles, I think they're doing their due diligence to fish around.
All right, let me ask you about the quarterback. And John and I marvel at this all the time because we've been doing Birds 365 for a couple of years now. All we ever talked about was Jalen Hurts from the end of his first year up until the start of last year. Is he good enough? Did they mess up? How badly did Carson Wentz screw them, turning it over to a guy who was drafted to be a backup? Is Jalen? And they had the season that he had, and he looked pretty good. And they sold us on he's our quarterback going forward. But they also went out and tried to acquire Russell Wilson. They also went out and tried to talk to Sean Watson into coming here. So they weren't as assured as they like to make you believe that that's the case. And then Jalen goes out and has this unbelievably great year and is runner-up for the MVP. So now we don't even talk about it. Once they got the contract done, Jalen Hurts became an afterthought. Well, we know we're great at the quarterback. Move on. Let's worry about everything else. A complete nothing burger this week. Now, this is just me, and I need your take on it as well. Peter King was in town, asked Jalen Hurts about the picture on his phone. He's got a picture of himself walking off the field with the red confetti coming down after the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl. And Peter asked him about it, and Jalen came up with a very abrupt answer. I won't talk about it. I don't even like the fact that you people know what's on my phone. Jalen Hurts is about as cool and composed a character as you know. And I didn't see video on this, but I certainly read everything that Jalen said. He seemed like really perturbed about this. I think it's a complete nothing burger. Who cares what picture's on his phone? If he uses it as motivation, good on him. And if he does, just say, hey, it's motivation to get me the green confetti for next year's phone picture. Why did this become a big deal?
We're in the age of social media. I mean, social media, they zoom into everything. They cut out everything. They try to find anything they can to really piss anybody off. And we know from seeing Jalen Hurts, he's a very private guy. Jalen doesn't really like talking about much outside of football. And I get it. You signed this big deal. You're definitely the guy. You're doing everything you can to bring up a city, right? To bring up a team back to his glory days, right? And you don't have any privacy, and it comes with the territory, right? You're a top quarterback in the NFL. You're going to be a hot commodity. You're going to be wanted on every corner, on every block, and you're going to be asked about. I definitely get where he's coming from. His loss of privacy in that matter is just. That's something that was probably very intimate to him, something that he used, personally to make sure that he can get back to where he wants to get back because he knows now that he got there last year. So I definitely get why he was mad, but I think this is, like you're saying, this is a nothing burger that just needs to be swept under the rug and just let the guy live, right? I mean, he didn't want to be part of the NFL, the quarterback special on Netflix. So it's kind of like he's showing you, like, hey, guys, when I'm on the field, I'm on the field. When I'm off the field, I don't exist.
And I was elated that he decided to skip that because that was my only concern for Jalen this offseason. Not that he wasn't going to be driven, not that he wasn't going to be prepared, not that he was going to get a big head about getting a big contract. I just thought he might be pulled in too many different directions. And he's as nice a guy as he is that he might have a tough time saying no. Oh, he said no to the quarterback thing on Netflix. I was like, yeah, good job, Jalen. Thank you very much. Love to see you. If you did it, I'd watch every single episode, but I'm actually more happy that you didn't do it. All right. Another one of the posts that you put up a while ago that I liked that I want to let you double down on was accountability. The Eagles as a team have had it kind of seared into them by the head coach. Everybody's accountable. And I like the fact that Sirianni was a little vocal in his first couple of practices. Hey, if we're not going long, we better go right. We better go hard. We better go strong. That there's a lot of accountability for the Eagles coming into the season off the year they had this year. How do you judge that?
It's funny because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the Doug Peterson days, right? I'm thinking about the leaks, the Alshon Jeffrey stuff, the Carson Wentz stuff. Doug Peterson was a heavy players coach, but he was also a great coach. Nick Sirianni is a players coach, but he also found a way to really keep everybody in line professionally. You know, we're a family. You know, we're here to have fun, but at the same time, we're here to do a job. And you feel that from even Sean Desai now, like we're here to show the NFL who Philly is, who the city is, but we're also here to make sure that we get the job done. And they have buy-in from the guys at the bottom of the roster, to the guys at the top of the roster, and that's huge. I mean, you have veterans like Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey falling in line with a guy that mocked.
Oh, did we lose Brian? I think we dropped his feed. All right, we'll take a quickie timeout here. Hopefully we can get Brian back up. I got one or two more questions to get to him if we can. Jody Mack here with you on Birds 365. Come right back.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Jody Mack back here with you on Birds 365. We dropped Brian's feed for just a second. We had to get him back. Do have a couple more questions I want to run by him. Managing editor of the Philadelphia Sports Network.com. I need a prediction from you, Brian. If either Patrick Johnson or Derek Barnett is going to make the Philadelphia Eagles, which one do you think has a better chance?
Patrick Johnson, hands down. Derek Barnett, he's definitely the apple of Howie's eye from that one draft, but it just hasn't panned out for Barnett here. He did have a couple great moments, but it's time to to cut ties, in my opinion, at least.
As do I, and I have been saying that for a couple of years now. But I guess he's a good guy, and they love his work ethic, and he's beloved in the room. But sorry, the production should come first. Do you think there's any team around the National Football League that'll give the Eagles any conditional type of pick for him? Now, he redid his contract. Now, maybe that's because he didn't want to go anywhere else, and he wanted to make – and Eagles said, we can – find a spot on the roster for you, but not at the dollar value that you have right now. Would it be harsh to turn around and either trade him or cut him after they get him to redo his contract, or is that just the business of football?
I think it's just the business of football, but I think it's Howie, right? At the end of the day, Howie could trade, a bag of donuts for all pro caliber player at the end of the day. So I wouldn't put it past him that he can, move Barnett to a team like possibly like the Vikings again, or some other club in that kind of position. What can they get back for it? It'd probably be a late round pick, but I think the Eagles, will value doing that more than just letting Barnett go for nothing.
All right, one other prediction for you. We talked about the Eagles running back room being crowded. Trey Sermon, how's he going to fit in? We've also seen throughout practice early here this year that they've been working on getting the running backs more involved in the passing game. They did very little of it last year. Sirianni specifically said, hey, you work with what you work with, which means they didn't love their running backs. They've added DeAndre Swift. They expect Kenny Gainwell to be better. How much is backs out of the backfield going to be a part of the Eagle passing game this year?
I think it's going to be a very, very, very crucial part of the offense. You're expanding the offense. You're giving Jalen Hurts more weaponry than he had last season. And from seeing DeAndre Swift so far, he's going to be very heavily involved. And this allows you to be so creative on offense now. Like you're talking about how creative, Doug and Frank were when they had Darren Sproles. This could definitely be a great wrinkle in the offense, and I think you're going to see a lot of it, more than you'd expect, honestly.
What do you need to see? And we'll get through the rest of the week of practice. Before you know it, first preseason game will be up. The dual practices, the Eagles have a couple of them this year with the Browns and with the Colts. What do you think Sirianni is looking to establish? As finite a detail as you want, or just generally speaking, what do you think the Eagles have to do between now and the opener against the Patriots in September? No, did we lose Brian's volume?
I'm here. Sorry about that. I had myself
no problem.
I think they just have to get their defense in order, and I don't mean that in a very disrespectful manner or anything like that. I think it's just a matter of getting who's going to be your guy at each position, right? Who's going to be the starting safeties. I think going into week one, you don't want to have any second thoughts of who you're going into battle with in the front line.
But there's several positions on this team that they rotate and they use depth as a tool. Certainly the defensive line being one of them. And I think the Eagles have, who was it? Bucky Brooks from the NFL said, the Eagles defensive line is the number one positional group, offense or defense, in the entire National Football League. And oh, by the way, I agree with Bucky there. So it's not just one guy, it's several different guys. So then it falls to the coaching staff to deploy them as best they can in just the right way. That's another key aspect of some of the changes in the coaching staff. Sirianni's talking it up pretty good, but he was very tight with both Gannon and with Shane Steichen. You think the coach has unfettered belief in his coaching staff doing the substituting during a game when you got to get certain guys in, certain guys out?
It seems like it so far. It seems like he's letting Sean Desai kind of take the reins and do what he has to do while giving as much input as he possibly feels comfortable with. I think that's the great thing about Sirianni is that his faith and his trust in his guys right off the bat is going to, it pays off for him. He trusted Jonathan Gannon in the Super Bowl, right? He trusted Shane Steichen with his offense, and everything just panned out perfectly. You don't see too many coaches kind of taking a back seat from play calling just to kind of monitor the team as a whole.
But that's, I think, one of the strengths of Sirianni is that he had confidence enough in his coaches and himself to be a CEO coach, and it worked out damn well with a Super Bowl appearance last year. All right, saved maybe the most important question for last. There's a wink involved here because Johnny Mac doesn't like talking about uniform colors. But this past week, we saw the reaction of Eagle fans with the return of the Kelly green uniforms. I happen to be a big fan. I'm not an over-the-top, oh, my God, yeah, you didn't find me on that line standing waiting to get a Kelly green jersey. I may get one at some point, but I do appreciate the fans' appreciation for the Kelly green. Does it have any effect on the Philadelphia other than it excites the fans, puts a couple extra dollars in Jeff Lurie's pocket? Some of the players shoot Josh Sweat, all right, without ever having wearing it once in the game, said, oh, this should be our number one color. Does it have any effect on a team whatsoever, Brian?
I think so. I mean, listen, looking your best on game day is it means everything to these guys, right? And now it feels like the Kelly green jersey is up there in that upper echelon of looking your best. The nostalgia behind it, the look of it, how distinctive it is, how unique it is. I think it could definitely give the Eagles a little bit of an edge. I mean, if you're playing good while looking good, there's no better feeling in the world.
Which means more, looking good or your Madden rating? Because those two things seem to be high on the players' priority list. If you're telling me looking good is that high, the only other thing that can rival it would be your Madden rating. They seem to care about that a ton. Which is more important to players?
In my opinion, I think looking good. I think the Madden rating is a little bit overstated.
You're buying into this. They're going to be pumped up and play better than ever because they're in Kelly.
I love it. The Madden rating is what it is, right? I mean, they haven't gotten it wrong. I mean, they haven't gotten Madden right in how many years? So the Eagles got the Kelly green right, the first try right there. So I think looking good matters a lot more to them right now.
Brian, great stuff. Do me a favor, check them out. One of the websites I go to every single day before I prepare for Birds 365 is phillysportsnetwork.com. Thank you very much for hopping in. We're going to have you on playing during the season. Thanks for doing it with us today.
I appreciate it, Jody. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Brian Cameron from phillysportsnetwork.com. I did not expect that answer. I thought he was going to go, yeah, they like to look good. Everybody Jody, don't you like to look good? Come on. I don't really care anymore. But as long as I know what I'm talking about, you guys can understand what I'm talking about. That's what I care about. I'm past the care what I look stage. But he put a heavy emphasis on that. Yeah, it can actually rise to the level of you can play better because you look better. Didn't think Brian was going there. I hope he's right, because there were some guys that seemed to be quite pumped up by the new Kelly green. I think it's more for the fans than it is for the players, but that's just me. However it came down, I give credit to Jeff Lurie, who worked hard to be able to get the entire Eagle uniform back, Kelly green jerseys and helmets included. They needed to wait until the NFL wised up enough to say, yeah, why are we holding back on helmets? Why are we putting restrictions on helmets? We need to do away with that. And it did. And the Eagles were able to get the old school uniform back. That's one thing I surely am, is an old school kind of guy. Be looking forward to when the Eagles don the Kelly green this year. I'll be looking forward to talking to my guy, John McMullen, on Monday. He'll be back. I believe the Eagles are off tomorrow, which means practice on Sunday, which means McMullen will be here for a full show on Monday. Very much looking forward to that. John may be on 24/7 tonight, so make sure you check back here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Thanks to Brian Cameron for hopping on, and a good job out of Bill Colarulo, who will be doing a Monday night podcast here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel as well. A guy who's jumping into the media biz after being a lawyer for a while. His podcast, Legal Hands to the Face, is something you might want to check out here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Myself and Johnny Mac and Mac guys will be back here with Birds 365 in 2 and 2 days, that is.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.